Hey yo, I am the star in any room that I stand in. I am the standout, you just my stand-in. These bitches copy my homework, that's what they hand in. That's why I'm private like the airports I land in. Life is a beach house, don't let the sand in. I ball in any arena, go let the fans in.
The unfortunate truth is that ethnic groups that are coded as non-Black in majority Black African countries are always going to have a tinge of anti-Blackness when expressing cultural pride. I don't make the rules, it's just an observation I have noticed. So for example, I'm not going to pick on South Africans. I'm going to go to my home country, Kenya, and look at Swahili people. If you don't know, Swahili people are the descendants of the mixed populations that arose out of the Indian Ocean slave trade, and they exist all across the East African coastline. You can have Swahili people who look monoracially Black. You can have Swahili people who don't look Black at all. You can have Swahili people who are in the middle, a mixture, many ranges, many different kinds of phenotypes. But because many Swahili people are not Black, and because many Swahili people are mixed, or because many Swahili people have Arab, Persian, South Asian ancestry, many Swahili people are a menace to society as a result. They do the whole I know Black thing that Dominicans do. Oftentimes they do sequester themselves off into their own communities and do not intermingle with the majority Black population. And there's this idea that they are special because they have mixed race ancestry. And then it's actually even worsened by the fact that many of them claim to have ancestry tracing back to Muhammad. So not only are you able to claim mixed race ancestry, but you're also claiming divinity. Ooh, yeah. And Swahili culture is very, very beautiful, but make no mistake that part of that cultural pride is in the ability to say that I'm not like these other Blacks. And that is embedded within every single community within majority Black nations that can get to say that they're not like the other Black people. That is same with the colored community in South Africa. And the reason why I'm picking on these groups of people is because they've often been used as buffers that have helped to subjugate the monoracially Black indigenous population. That's why I'm picking on them. It's not just me being like, oh, y'all like to say that you're not Black. It's because there's been systemic weaponization of their identity against the indigenous Black population. Well, that is exactly why when people were saying that they were rubbed the wrong way by Tyla, I did not say much because I understood where people were coming from. She's very much allowed to be, proud of her heritage, whatever. Her identity literally exists as a colonial juxtaposition against Black indigenous identity. But even though I'm somebody who always says that, yes, race is different in other countries, race is different in Africa, we don't all have the same conceptions of race, I stayed quiet because a lot of colored pride, a lot of non-Black pride when you're in a majority Black country is literally rooted in the fact that you're not Black. Like to me, and this might rub you the wrong way, but to me, when non-Black populations in majority Black countries say that they're proud of their culture, I see it the same way as when white people say that they're proud to be white. I'm just like, yeah, I'm sure you are. You are systemically advantaged. I'm sure you're proud. Why do you have to tell us this? What did we have to know? Why did we have to know this? We already see that you are advantaged over the indigenous monoracial Black society. You have to tell us that you're proud? We know. We see it. African race politics are very interesting, and this whole Tyla discourse just reminded me that I had to say this and get this off my chest.
what's up, y'all? I hope all is well. So I don't know that much about Swahili people or like East Africa, the East African region that she's referring to. So I try not to speak against or to give my perspective on cultures and cultural dynamics I don't know much about, just because I don't want to speak on something I'm not qualified to. But I did want to respond to this video because it's very obvious that this girl is pushing some of the same stereotypes about light skinned and mixed people that we see often being pushed on social media. And that's why I'm speaking on this, because it also shows how pervasive this propaganda has become and how essentially they're just using social media as a platform to brainwash other people in diaspora into having this anti-mixed, anti-light skin mentality that comes from the United States. And it comes from the United States because a lot of it is connected with our history with miscegenation and how light skinned and mixed people have been treated and viewed. Now, that's not to say there haven't been other color or skin tone dynamics in other parts of the world or other countries amongst people of African diaspora. And I can only speak from the cultures that I come from, which is what I do. I don't try to speak on other Black diasporic cultures. But that being said, if there are so many different diverse scenarios and dynamics that have impacted Black people's color and skin tone dynamics in their country and region, how is it possible that y'all all have the same negative stereotypes and negative connotations with mixed and light skinned people if it's not propaganda? Like, mind you, one of the ways that you can tell this is obvious propaganda is because these people all have the same 4 or 5 talking points. They all have the same talking points. The light skin apologists all have the same talking points. The women who claim that they're victims of all these evil light skins, they all have the same story twisted around 3 or 4 times. They all have a random biracial friend who had a white mother who made some innuendo about them being more attractive. And let's say that this stuff is true. Let's say that all of these stories are true. Let's say that every single experience is true. Who am I to counteract that? Like I said, who am I to argue against something that I don't know for sure? But I do think it's a bit strange if every single story is exactly fucking same. Like, that's a bit weird. How is it that y'all are from all of these different countries, different time periods, but y'all all have the exact same story and the exact same narratives about mixed and light skinned people? Now, what the propagandists will try to do is say, well, that just shows that you mixed and light skinned people are consistently colorist and anti-Black, and if everybody has the same story, then how are they lying? Funny enough, when non-Black people use that same logic against them and use the same stereotypes and propaganda against the general Black community, regardless of skin tone, then they can recognize that as propaganda.
And I want to give a disclaimer to that when I'm saying that this mentality is coming out of the United States mainly, but generally the West, so United States, Europe, aka Afro descendant people in European societies. Okay, so it's coming out of the West, but we know mainly the United States. But that is not to get confused with me saying that it's coming from African Americans ethnically specifically. Does that make sense? So a lot of the people who have been professors or authors that have done some of the more academic work about colorism earlier, or just like I said, just academically, not on social media, those people are from all over the diaspora. Some of them are African American, a lot of them are African, some of them are, of Caribbean descent, Europe, whatever. You know what I mean? So it's been a diasporic effort. So I want to make that clear that that's not me saying it's coming from a specific ethnic group, because I actually don't think it's coming from a specific ethnic group, but I do think it's coming from the United States. And if you listen to the mentality, it sounds like a Western perspective. People in Africa, in Latin America, the Caribbean, Black people who live there, they're not operating and thinking in the same way as people in the West have to. So their perspective towards race is very different. So that's why I'm also irritated about her like correlating this narrative from the United States to Swahili people, especially now that I've done a little researchy search, on the Googles about Swahili people. You cannot equate Swahilis to anything that's going on in the Americas. So, this is a propaganda tactic in itself, which is like, I forget what you call it, but basically equating something as the same thing when it's not, or using the same narrative when two different situations are going on, but you want the listener to correlate them with the same idea in their head. So I'm going to get into that, but that's basically what's going on here.
Okay, so the propaganda technique that I was thinking about is called transfer. So according to Google, it says propaganda technique transfer, also called association, is a persuasion technique that links something to a product, idea, or person, to respected or disliked symbols, people, or concepts, to transfer their positive or negative feelings, using emotions over logic, using a flag without a political, or associating a brand with a celebrity, making you feel good about the product or idea without a real connection. It's also known as a virtue by association or guilt by association. So that was a really weird run-on sentence, but yeah, it's basically transferring an idea or an association onto a product, group, or person. So transferring or associating a certain demographic with maybe a food or a behavior type, something like that. Essentially, it's creating a stereotype. Stereotypes are essentially association propaganda when you think about it. But anyway, getting back to this diasporic jealousy of MGMs. So I completely lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh yeah. So one of the ways that I started to realize that a lot of this Colorism Inc. Stuff was BS is because how is it possible that there have been all of these different circumstances, depending on what country, region, colony, whatever, different ways that mixed race and light skinned people have experienced race in these situations, but yet according to the darker people, we all have the same mentality and we all think XYZ way, and we all have this superiority complex and think we're better, and they all have this excuse as to one thing that happened 100 years ago in history as to why we all think we're better, and all like have this this colorist mindset towards other people. It's just weird. It's like I don't understand it. And so that's one of the ways that it's obvious bullshit. If a group of people from all over the world, they're all saying the same story about that person, it's probably not true, or it's probably coming from a negative place, and you just shouldn't believe it.
I would also appreciate if you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are not already and the content resonates with you. Welcome, as well as making sure you hit the bell for notifications so you'll be informed every time I upload a new video or go live. I'd also encourage you to check out my Patreon, where you can access old and exclusive content, as well as having early access to new uploads. That will be linked in the description box below.
So I want to bring your attention to the screen where I am showing a Google search I did of Swahili people. And of course, this is not an anthropological scientific study or anything like that. This is literally just images on Google, and even Google has an agenda about what it will show. So, I'm acknowledging all of those variables in this situation, but if you look at the images on the screen, it appears to me and especially based on what I already knew a little bit about Swahili people and about that region of Africa, it appears to me that the majority of Swahili people are darker skinned to even brown skinned, but what we would in the United States call darker skin. You can see that there are a few light-skinned Swahili people, and I guess those are the mixed ones they're talking about. But from my research, I even watched a video about Swahili people, a few on YouTube, and even in those videos, they were mostly showing dark-skinned and brown-skinned people. Not even brown-skinned people. They were literally showing dark-skinned people. So this kind of goes back to what I'm talking about this constant perpetuation of propaganda that's saying that light-skinned people are promoting this colorism, because that's exactly how she implied it. She didn't say that outright, but she definitely implied it, that it's light-skinned and mixed people perpetuating all this colorism, and brown skin and dark skin people are just sitting back as these innocent victims, which by her own logic, if I was to go with her talking points, if you're saying that Swahili people other themselves and they're colorist and they think that they're better than the other ethnic groups, well, that means by default that a lot of these people are dark skinned who are thinking this as well. So why is it that you're always trying to perpetuate this narrative that it's these minority, just rogue light skinned people just going out perpetuating all this colorism and nobody else is colorist? Like, y'all don't make any type of PSAs or any videos or any type of narratives about brown skin and dark skin people being colorist and how that's harmful to the Black diaspora, but y'all focus in on these very few minorities of light skinned people and single us out as the main colorist, when it gives that the majority of the people in these ethnic groups be brown skin and dark skin, but somehow y'all focus in on us and want to scapegoat the light skinned people for being the main colorist. And it's like, if a minority group of people can convince you to dislike yourself or can have all this power over your self-image, then the problem is you. Like, if you letting a horrible minority group of people come in and dictate all this stuff to the point where y'all are globally bothered by light-skinned people, then perhaps the problem is you. Because from my limited research on Google, it looks like most Swahili people are dark skinned. They don't look mixed at all. So why are you coming to the internet pushing anti-mixed propaganda about an ethnic group that is majority monoracially Black? Like, that's not to say that there aren't some mixed Swahili people or some light-skinned Swahili people, but again, and I'm not even trying to argue that Swahilis or light skins in general are perfect and that we don't perpetuate colorism and that there's no colorist light-skinned and mixed people. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. That's never been my argument. My argument has essentially been, yeah, colorism exists, but you also put out a lot of propaganda against light-skinned and mixed people. That's my only argument. Like, that's all I'm trying to say here. They're also betting on the fact that other Black people are unexposed to these groups on a personal, individual basis. So it's easier to push a lot of propaganda and stereotypes about a group of people you've never met or interacted with. So it's easy to get on the internet and convince a bunch of Americans that Swahilis are these light-skinned, ambiguous, mixed descendants of Arabs that are running around being colorist towards people if they don't have any reference towards who Swahili people were. I knew that her video sounded like BS because I actually have family members that grew up in Kenya. So they have mentioned Swahili people here and there. So I have heard that that ethnic group named before. So I kind of had some familiarity with Swahili people. And whenever I would see pictures that my cousins would send, all I ever saw them was with dark skinned people. So when she's sitting up here talking about, oh yeah, they're mixed race and colorist, I was like mad confused. I'm like, I've only known Swahili people to be dark skinned. So that's why I had to do my own research. And that's why I decided to do this video, because I'm like, girl, it's giving that you're obviously perpetuating propaganda. Like, seriously, y'all really look how many Googles. I literally had to scroll down for at least 2 minutes before I even saw one picture of light-skinned people. But yeah, these people are so problematic. Like, how are y'all giving them that much power? And something that she mentioned in her video that a lot of propagandists do that genuinely doesn't make sense to me is that in one breath they'll say, oh well, a lot of Swahilis are not Black because, well, her logic would be because they're mixed or because of how they look, because they're light skinned, they're not Black. But then they also turn around and get mad and say, oh, they do the same thing that Dominicans do. Mind you, she has a European accent and from Kenya, but she's over here talking about Dominicans. This is what I'm talking about. This is literally what I'm talking about. So now the anti-Dominican propaganda has traveled all the way to the motherland or to Europe. So now you got Black people who have probably never interacted with a Dominican, probably never even have interacted with a Latino of any race. And even now they're picking up on the propaganda. So that's why I'm saying this is harmful. Y'all think it's just a kiki and we're just being overly sensitive. It's like, no, this is highly inappropriate. And yeah, it is putting out negative messaging. But anyway, so first they'll say, oh, well, they're not Black and they sequester themselves into their own communities. But then they get mad about Dominicans allegedly saying me no Black. Mind you, I've lived around Dominicans my entire life. I've never heard a Dominican say me no Black. This is just not a conversation that people have amongst themselves at all. This is a completely internet thing. But anyway, so and it's the same thing with biracials. They'll complain about quote unquote biracials with white moms not having respect for black people, but then they'll say, oh, they like biracials with black moms more because they're more in touch with their blackness. But then these exact same characters will be the main people saying biracial people are not black. So it's like, you don't want them to consider themselves to be black, but you want them to have all this reverence and identification with blackness and be a footstool. Like, it's not going to work like that. Either you're going to have somebody who sees themselves in reverence and in correlation to the black community or not. You can't have it both ways. So that's why I never feel bad for those people or listen to anything that they say, because it's pure double talk with them. And that's why I really don't even listen to monoracial black people or even mixed people who try to push this whole mixed people aren't black narrative, because if both of y'all truly believe that you weren't black or weren't a part of the African diaspora, you wouldn't care what the other group was saying, and you definitely wouldn't be making content about it. If she genuinely didn't see these mixed or light-skinned Swahili people as black, she wouldn't care that they're quote unquote sequestering themselves into their own community, whatever that means. And I'm gonna get more into why I feel like that triggers her in a minute, but yeah, so it's all lip service in that regard, talking about, oh, they're a menace to society. And y'all are a menace to Beyonce and Al Gore's internet when y'all stay getting on these apps with these dry ass takes. Like, come on now, who could play at that game? And if you're in my Patreon or seen the clips I posted, you or even saw the clip that I was reacting to, you will see that there's even biracial people themselves running around saying that they're a menace to society or something along the same line. So all these exaggerations about how horrible mixed and light-skinned people are because we sitting around eating rice or whatever, like, what is really the problem? And it's like, why are you so triggered because somebody sees themselves singularly as mixed or whatever? It's like, y'all have too much of a codependent identity, and you feel offended when other people distinguish themselves when it really has nothing to do with you. So it's like, I don't even get the point of her video. Like, they're a problem because they're off in their own corner. You literally said they mind their business and then said, oh, they're a menace to society because they minding their business in their own sequestered group. Like, and with these types of characters, anything and everything mixed and light-skinned people do is always going to be a problem. If you self-segregate, that's going to be a problem and a personal slight. If you try to engage with other black people, then you're trying to make yourself the center of attention and trying to exploit and use your privilege. It's the most weirdest dynamic. Everything is going to be a problem. Everything. But why I decided to title this video talking about jealousy is because I do think that there is a level of jealousy towards MGM cultures, and I want to separate that from the misplaced resentment conversation, and I want to just focus on the cultural pride that a lot of mixed race groups have. And I don't even like to say that, but okay, I'll say this. A lot of historically multi-generationally mixed cultures have a lot of pride surrounding that. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think that there are a lot of other people in the African diaspora that have that might feel a little insecure about the cultural narrative or the cultural image that they have. So when MGM cultures are proud, they look at it as a slight, and they look at it as, oh, you're proud because you're farther from the African diaspora, or they perceive it as, oh, your pride is coming from you thinking that you have a farther proximity from the African diaspora, when our pride is not coming from having a farther proximity from Africanness. It's coming from the resilience of being usually the group of African people that survived through these horrific events, and not only survived but thrived enough to create an entirely new thriving culture that generally we're very proud of. And I just feel like there are people in the African diaspora who are jealous of that. It's like they're like jealous of how they're jealous that we're proud that we kind of like persevered. And that's what it is. Like, and I feel that way because I've come to the conclusion that unfortunately there are some black people who, or no, I'll say this, there are some monoracial people who do see it as mixed people being proud to be mixed is a personal slight towards me, because they're projecting their feelings of inadequacy onto that person. So they're interpreting it as, oh, if you're saying you're proud to be you and you're different than me, well, that must be a slight towards me because I'm uncomfortable with other people performing blackness differently than me and also still having pride. So insecure people think that it's a slight towards you when you're proud of just who you are and you're not even adding them into their equation. It has nothing to do with them. They're perpetuating, or they're projecting their self into the equation and then being offended that you're not taking their feelings into account. Meanwhile, they're projecting onto you. And it's just like, who has time for that? So I don't really have a lot of patience for this particular part of the discussion because it does just come off as hateration. Like, seriously, like the obsession with Dominicans and Creoles, it just comes off as pure hateration. Most of y'all have never even interacted with a Dominican. The average lay African American has never even met a Dominican. They damn sure have not been in a Dominican home. They damn sure have not met more than 3 or 4 Dominicans gathering at once. So it's like, how are y'all on social media all the time with all this to say about a demographic of people y'all have barely even interacted with? Mind you, this is coming from a Cuban bitch that grew up around nothing but Dominicans. I grew up in a straight Dominican neighborhood, and then when I go to other parts of the country to see my family in the Midwest and everything, I don't see nan Dominican in sight. I don't see one Afro-Latino in sight. I don't see anybody who's black and even speaks Spanish. But then y'all speak so much on social media on Afro-Latinos and on Dominicans specifically and how we think and everything, when a lot of y'all have never even interacted with an Afro-Latino or a South African colored person, but y'all speaking so much on our mentality and how we view the world and how we view blackness. So it's all a projection. So that's why I have to come to the conclusion, I'm sorry, but I do think that a lot of the animosity towards MGM cultures comes from jealousy, because y'all are jealous of our pride and our resilience, and our pride and our resilience has absolutely nothing to do with you. Us being proud that we're a combination of cultures that thrived and proceeded through colonization and made something better that has sexier people and tastier food, and we completely upped everything the Europeans was trying to do, even though they trying to sit up here talking about they're the superior race. Meanwhile, y'all flying to our countries to eat our food, to have sex with us, to try to get citizenship in our countries because our land looks and feels better. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of shit talking, a lot of slights. Meanwhile, people just don't want to give us our props and our flowers, and us being proud of being the group that survived and persevered and created something new. That's not a slight towards anybody else. That's just us being proud of who we are. So I don't have a lot of patience for this type of discussion, because I'm just gonna be honest with you, there are some other black people who they think that everybody else has to be responsible for their insecurity triggers, and that's not everybody else's job. Everybody else is not responsible for your triggers, like I said, or for what might remind you of XYZ, or what might make you feel a type of way. It's not everybody else's job to downplay how they feel about something or their differences to make you feel comfortable, and that's essentially what these people want. So again, I'm not trying to gaslight this girl, because I don't know her experience. I don't know how the Swahili people are giving it up. You know what I mean? I don't know what the color dynamics are. I don't know how that works. I do know that a lot of Africans will call brown skinned people, or people that are teensy weensy lighter than them, they will call them light skin, and then try to put out this narrative, oh my god, these light skinned people, they're colorist, when in reality it's like, why is it that somebody automatically has to turn into a light skinned person just because they're colorist? Why is it so hard for y'all to accept that? I'm not saying that to try to take the heat off light-skinned people. I know some light-skinned people are fucked up. Like, that's never been my argument. I know there are some light-skinned people that are colorist or have color issues themselves. Like, that's natural across the diaspora. But again, this goes back to propaganda and the changing of language. Whenever they want to talk about a group of people being colorist, they call them light skin, or they associate them with mixed ancestry, because they want to make the association between colorism and light skin and mixed people. They want light-skinned and mixed people to be simultaneously equated with colorism. They don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation of accepting that black people of all skin tones, regardless of their heritage, can and have perpetuated colorism, and that is why it's a thing in our community. And I think another thing that benefits these narratives is that a lot of people don't even know how Swahili people look. So it's easy for her to get online and say, oh yeah, there are these evil light skins over here in East Africa and they think that they're better. Whole time you look up a Swahili person and most of them are brown skin with kinky hair. So where is all the colorism coming from? I'm not saying that brown skin people can't be colorist towards dark skin people, but I think that it's funny that you was quick to get online and associate this dynamic with light skin and mixed people. Meanwhile, when I looked up what Swahili people look like, most of them look the same as her and look like most Kenyans. So I'm just like mad confused. So yeah, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I feel like they be using language and trying to like low-key stretching the truth about shit to try to push a narrative. And that's not to say again that there's not colorism in this region or that there's not ethnic issues between people, but how is it that you're saying that Swahili people have the exact same mentality towards light-skinned black Americans who went through a completely different history and have a whole different experience with colonization and ethnicity and skin tone? Like, that shit doesn't make any sense. So are y'all having in a skin tone colorism dynamic, or is this an ethnicity dynamic? And that's what I don't like about when some Africans speak on this topic either, because in the Americas we have a very different dynamic going on than in Africa, because in Africa a lot of their issues are ethnically based and they have a lot of ethnic tensions, and a lot of people will have a superiority complex based on their ethnicity. But these colorism propagandists, they'll switch the narrative and say, oh yeah, these people think that they're better because of their skin tone or because they have mixed heritage, when in reality you know that these two ethnic groups have been beefing since God knows when. But now you trying to make it a light skin dark skin scenario to stir up drama on TikTok. Like, that out. Like, they always want to put the colorism issue on light skin and mixed people because it's uncomfortable for them to address that black people of all skin tones, whether they're dark skin, brown skin, whatever, can perpetuate colorism and can have color complexes. So it's weird that we always got to keep having these constant conversations about light skin and mixed people being colorist. And then mind you, these are the same type of people who will say that light skin and mixed people are not even black. So why are you so concerned about a group of people who you don't even see as part of your diaspora being so colorist and featurist? And texturist. And this is kind of why I'm saying a lot of this is simply like just jealousy and face watching. Like, if we were really as problematic and as nasty as y'all claim that we were, you wouldn't be sitting around talking about us unsolicited and putting out all types of stereotypes and negative messages about us all the time with very little pushback. Like, barely anybody in the African diaspora is pushing back against any of this Colorism Inc. stuff, yet y'all claim that we're this all-powerful light-skinned group that's just making y'all feel so horrible about yourself. Meanwhile, you're very comfortably on social media pushing the same stereotype about us, no matter if y'all in Europe, Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean. Y'all all have the same stereotypes, it seems like, about light-skinned and mixed people. Meanwhile, we're barely ever speaking on you. Like, you're steady speaking on us, but we barely ever speaking on you. Like, I don't see a bunch of videos of a bunch of South African colors and Dominicans and Louisiana Creoles coming out bashing dark skin and brown skin people all the time. I don't see that shit. But every time I get on social media, I see a video of you or a post of you saying something negative about light skin and mixed people. So yeah, do with that information as you will. But yeah, it's just giving jealousy, because I just don't understand why every single time there's a mixed or light skinned group of people in the region, y'all always got a million fucking complaints about them. Leave them South African colors alone. They just want to sit in they townships, mind their business, live their best life. I was in South Africa. For the most part, the South African colors mind their business, stay to themselves, as did the fully black other ethnic groups. So I don't understand why y'all get on and same thing with Dominicans. Dominicans do not sit around talking bad about black Americans all the time. Latinos do not sit around talking bad about black Americans. That's not to say that colorism and anti-blackness is not an issue, but my point is that y'all are sitting around talking about these groups who are not talking about you, and then you're trying to make it seem like, oh, I'm just defending myself. No, you're perpetuating you're perpetuating stereotypes and propaganda. Okay, so shout out to the Swahilis out there. They're already trying to push propaganda about y'all. So I'm telling y'all right now, you don't want to end up like Afro Latinos and the South African colors, because they've been bashing us for 20 damn years straight, and now they're trying to come for y'all. But yeah, I don't really like generally on my channel to try to accuse brown skin and dark skin people of being jealous, because honestly I feel like that's a lazy argument, and I feel like that it kind of diminishes the moral of my argument by trying to say somebody's just jealous, because honestly I don't think that it is jealousy. I think that a lot of other black people have misplaced resentment towards mixed and light skinned people. It feels better to think, oh, this person is just jealous, and just dismiss it as jealousy, when in reality I think a lot of this shit is a lot more complex, and I think neither group really wants to take the time to kind of like unpack this, but just dismissing each group by saying, oh, this person's just jealous, or that person's just colorist, or they just don't want to acknowledge their privilege, or whatever it is. Stuff is way more complicated than that. So it's not that I'm trying to be dismissive and saying, oh, just I don't want to talk about colorism at all. No, I just want to understand why you feel the need to put out propaganda and stereotypes against mixed and light skinned people. Why do you feel like that's a social benefit for you, that people have a negative connotation of mixed and light skinned people? Like, why do you think that that's positive for you? So that's kind of more so what I'm trying to argue against, or trying to get to the bottom of. I don't really think these people are jealous. Are there some people that are jealous? Yeah, but people are jealous of a lot of things. You could be butt ugly in any skin tone. You could have anything, and people will find a way to be jealous of that. So I find it funny that black people only ever want to talk about jealousy in the capacity of skin tone or hair texture. I mean, by that logic, there's a lot of things people could accuse y'all of being jealous of. Like, y'all don't want non-black people to start getting on here and accusing y'all of being jealous. But anyway, yeah, like, people can be jealous of anything. So I think that is interesting that black people only associate jealousy with skin tone and hair texture. But that being said, I think that these people have misplaced resentment, and I think they want to use mixed and light skinned people as the scapegoat for colorism, texturism, featureism, because they, one, don't want to acknowledge that black men are the main perpetuators of colorism, and they have a lot of color complexes and color inferiorities, and that impacts the entire black community. They don't want to address that, and they don't want to give them a consequence, so they want to make light-skinned and mixed people the convenient scapegoat. And two, they don't want to acknowledge the uncomfortable reality of what I was talking about before, that black people of any skin tone and any background can be and have historically perpetuated colorism. It's not just a bunch of light-skinned, light-eyed, mixed race people sitting around being colorist. The reason why colorism is a thing in the black community is because everybody has been on code with it, whether they agree with it or not. Silence is complacency. It is not fair to scapegoat mixed and light-skinned people about that, and then go on this whole global campaign of trying to put out smear campaigns and negative propaganda against us to try to convince everybody that we're the colorists. Meanwhile, everybody else in the world, I do not see Indians only scapegoating light-skinned people for being colorists. One thing I will say about Indians is that they seem to call out every group of the Indians. They don't sing. But I'll say I've noticed that Indians don't seem to only scapegoat light-skinned people for colorism. They are more honest, I feel like, about acknowledging that their entire society is extremely colorist and extremely color focused. Why black women's colorism argument is falling flat, and why people are starting to lose patience, is because it doesn't help your case to try to scapegoat these other groups for what's going on, and then try to like dominate the narrative, but you don't want any other aspect of the narrative being addressed when everybody can see what's actually going on. Nobody cares about what white people were doing 150 years ago in the house and in the fields. Nobody cares about that. People see black men online today talking about skin tone. So what sense does it make to reach back 150 years to try to make that the cause of colorism, but then you want everybody else to be so apologetic and so understanding? It just doesn't make any sense. So that's my issue. It's like there are a lot of uncomfortable conversations that black people don't want to have, but they want to keep making light skin and mixed people the scapegoat, and that's just not fair. We can have a separate conversation about some of the internal diasporic issues that people have had based on their ethnicity, whatever the case may be. That's a separate conversation. But yeah, so anyway, that was my response to that girl's video of saying that Swahili people are colorist. So get in the comment section and let me know what you thought about this video. Peace.